Hello and welcome to this SOSCON 2022 conference and set of presentations where you will be learning a lot about lots of things. Hi, I am Leandro Melendez and I am going to be presenting to you a little bit about how to evolve your performance assurance, not only testing, all your practices that you can do around all these performance thingies that we can do. But before I begin, for the ones that do not know me, who am I? I am Leandro Melendez, also known in the internets as Señor Performo. I am a DevRel, an advocate, a performance advocate with K6, the company that generates or created this load testing tool automation for developers that is really good. You will love it. Take a look at it if you're looking for modern options, which we are going to be talking about today. As I mentioned, I am Señor Performo. That started with a blog that I seldom pay attention to. I have to fix that. But as well, if you want to learn more about performance, which the blog, we have lots of information, you can find me on all the social networks, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even YouTube, a little bit more on that, where you can see what are the performance testing things that I'm posting, what I'm generating, and you can find me on all of those. And back to the YouTube part, I'm gonna jump a little bit that one. I am a YouTuber lately. I started to generate some video content and have some videos. You can look for it on YouTube as Señor Performo, ENG for English, or if you want to try Spanish or know Spanish, Señor Performo, just like that, you can find it. As well, I am the host of the Perf Español podcast, the Spanish version of the Perf podcast, where I try to break barriers and jump borders of language and help for our Spanish speakers to learn a little bit more about performance. And I'm a presenter, you may not have noticed. I like to be giving presentations, giving talks, and we're about to get out of that, hopefully, and have some in-person presentations. But for now, as you can see, we're virtual. This world situation that we're living for the past 2 years. Public speaking or virtual speaking, how about that? And last but not least, I am a author. I just recently published my book, The Hitchhiking Guide to Load Testing Projects. A fun walkthrough, step-by-step guide that will guide you through traditional load testing projects. Load testing, traditional. It's a set of important things that we need to know, and we need to make sure that we understand. If you want to take a look at it, I hope that you will have lots of fun while reading. It's on Amazon, paperback, hardcover, and on your Kindle devices. So, to get far a little bit about me, I want to thank SOSCON, SOS Labs, for giving me the opportunity to be here with you, presenting and sharing this knowledge and these ideas with all of the community. Thank you to you, the person watching, looking at me right now, for deciding to join this presentation and try to see what this crazy Mexican mustache guy has to say. And, well, what are we going to be talking about today? I divided in 3 parts this presentation today. I'm going to start with performance. What's performance? What's the deal with this? Believe it or not, there are several confusions, situations, and terms variations where we need to make sure that we understand what we are talking about when we talk about performance. Next, we are going to be giving modern practices and methodologies today. But before that, you need to be aware or know how to differentiate what is modern and what is not. So I will focus a little bit on showing you what is not that modern or that cool anymore. It's old. And to close, well, that's what I promised today, some modern recommendations for performance to make sure that your system is as performant and beautiful as possible. So, what? Performance. It is a big practice. There are lots of things. So let's dive into it and start to figure out, learn, and realize What are we talking about when we say performance? Performance, well, oh wow, performance. There are so many things. Is it testing? Is it assurance? Is it scripting? I also heard the term load testing. What are we talking about? Well, yes, there are several areas, you can call it like specialties in medicine, to the performance testing practice, where at times you have on one hand testing. What is testing specifically? What is assurance? What means to assure a good performance for our applications? And as well, too, what is scripting? I mean, that one I hope not too much need, but it's as well important that we have the assurance part understood. What are the differences? Because many here, as you can see at the bottom, load testing, they think it's the same as performance testing. They want to automate everything. No. Let's get things cleared out. Let's start with performance testing. What is it specifically? Let's go to a dictionary definition to make sure that we do not leave too many open ends or loose ends around this. First, performance. What does performance, the word, mean? Performance refers to the quality of something regarding its speed, its efficiency, how good is it, how well is it doing the things that it's supposed to do. This applies to many things: the performance, the gasoline performance of a car, the performance of an individual, in sports, can be many things. But today we're gonna be talking about software. So this means how good, how fast, how efficient is a software. Now, testing. Testing is an activity. What does this activity do? It's not automating, it's not cycles, it's not... Testing is the action of validating and verifying, and as well measuring, like observing and knowing something. That's it, that's testing. Not necessarily to generate judgments on it. No. Testing just checks it, makes us aware of what is going on with this. Now, if we put them together, again, testing around software to verify, validate, and measure software, and performance, how efficient, how fast is the software. If we put them together, we get this definition of its performance testing is any, take a look at Mr. Smith. He's making sure that you notice it's any. Pay attention to him, otherwise he may slap you. Be careful. Any mean or way to validate, verify, and measure how fast and efficient is the software. We're not saying here only automations, we're not saying here load testing, we're anything, any way in which you can check how fast and efficient is your software. And performance testing is a practice that focuses on verifying and validating these two things that we mentioned, and has three main components. You may already be guessing some of those from what I just said, but here it is, the Triforce of performance testing. There are three main elements that performance testing will be paying attention to. Which are them? First, speed. As I mentioned, how fast is it? What do we pay attention with speed? Well, time, how long it takes for something. We tend to obsess on response times for HTTP requests in terms of performance, but we can measure many other things. How fast is a Docker container being spun up? How fast is it destroyed? How long do we keep memory? Duration of things, the reaction, the time of a reaction for something. When I click here, how fast is it working? Super important. Now, the second element of this Triforce of performance is the efficiency. How do we know how efficient is our software when we trigger an action? Well, we measure what is the impact. We pay attention on the impact in the application. So how do we measure this impact? The most frequent ones are the four horsemen of the perf apocalypse: CPU, RAM, disk, and network. But there are many other things that we can pay attention to when we are talking about performance efficiency, such as even temperature, in a device, if it's good performance and it's not burning your pocket when you have it there. There are many things that we can be paying attention to check that efficiency. That efficiency will become a problem when we have certain situations. We'll get into that in a moment. What is the third component? The third component is a situation. In what specific situation do I want to test the performance? This situation is kind of like a set of circumstances that happen at the same time, like a scenario, pun intended, wink, wink. In this, we will be checking for specific situations, when there's load, when there's no load, when there's people, when we are booting the system, when only one person clicks here and there. There are so many situations. Just like in chaos engineering, we have a blast radius for a performance and load test. We have to narrow down our blast radius of a situation and test only for that. Risky situations. Oh, that my system might not respond fast. Let's check that. Let's measure that situation. When I click it, is it responding fast? Many users, too little users, no users, all those situations, we need to measure if there are risks around, okay? And some of you may be asking, why these situations you just mentioned load? Well, yeah. Load testing is a subfamily, a specific situation for these performance tests. This triforce of elements for performance testing has one of the situations can be load testing. That is one of them, but it's not all of them. There are so many other things where we can check performance. So make sure that you understand. Performance testing is on any situation. We will test, verify, and validate. Load testing is just when the situation is well related to load. Now, what happens with performance assurance? Performance assurance is not only testing. We can do many other things to assure that the performance of our application is great. So we have like a family tree. Underneath is load testing. Load testing is part of the performance testing practice. There are many performance tests that we can do, not only load. And performance testing is part of the performance assurance practice. All the things that we can do to assure that we have a good performance in our application. Not only tests. We can tune, we can monitor, we can observe. There are so many things that we can do around performance to guarantee that it's good when we want or need to implement performance tests. And you may say, why? Why should I do a performance test? So, we have some cons and pros. Some cons, bad things that can happen when you do not do performance testing. Among them could be that your end customers, your clients may not be happy with the application or the system that you want them to use, and they leave. You lose sales, you lose customers, it's expensive to recover them. And you may say, well, I don't care. I don't have customers. It's employees, it's an internal application. Well, there you will have a similar situation. When you have an internal application, you created it to enable your employees to be more efficient or save some time, save some money. If it doesn't perform, you may have invested and wasted your money because they won't work well, won't be fast. They will lose time, they maybe will be even hating the application, have low morale, all those problems, which will translate in losses, money. And as well, when a performance issue appears, if you did no testing at all, most probably you will be detecting it too late, and it will be literally too late. So, what are the pros? The opposite side of this. If you do pay attention to performance, you will have happy clients, happy customers. They will be generating you lots of sales. They will be engaged. They will have loyalty to you. All good, right? Money. And for internal applications, as I mentioned, your employees will be super efficient, working. Hopefully won't hate the system. And the end goal is that they will be more productive. And if there's an issue, most probably you will detect it early, when it is cheap. You know, it's better to detect these things when early. It means cheaper, easier, less tears, less problems, all that. Now that we know that it's important, let's identify if you are old, if your performance practices are not that good if they are kind of old. Let's go first and try to identify how to tell if you are old. My knees hurt a little bit. I'm starting to get lower back pain. A hangover lasts days now or even weeks. Those may be signs that I'm old. What are the signs in the performance testing area, in performance assurance, that you may be doing things in the old ways? First, you are trying to measure everything related to performance just with automations. That's very bad, very old. Bad practice. We will get into why in a moment. Another symptom might be that production is untouchable for you in terms of performance. Nothing can go through production. We're in modern days. We can do lots in production. You'll see what we can do. Another thing is that when you talk about performance, you always think about load testing, and you mostly do load tests. You always want load, how many users, how much can I put the system into? I want to bring it down to its knees. No, those are bad practices. Not anymore. You don't have a monolith. We'll get into that in a moment, but it's almost impossible nowadays to push a system down to its knees, or systems, because we know we don't have a monolith anymore. Another symptom is that you're trying to automate everything at the front-end level, or doing these long steps by step, end-to-end automations or tests. That's old. That's bad. That won't provide you any benefit. Stay away from it. The other symptom is that you are wasting time in the handover of processes. What I mean, the developer finished, packs, builds, finishes all the solution, and hands it over to the tester. And the tester receives it, the performance tester in this, analyzes it, works through it, time is passing, starts automating, time keeps passing, just does the log test, time keeps passing, defect, okay, sends it back, time keeps passing. You're losing lots of time. That's a very bad practice. Who creates it, tests it, validates it. You may be a little bit scrambled with this, but we will give some nice ways to do that. And one of the other symptoms is that you do performance testing few times. Again, just load tests. No, that's a very bad practice. Now we should be doing it continuously. And why am I saying that old is bad? Well, I'm not saying it's bad. It's probably not the best. Why? There are some symptoms or some things that are repercussions that will make us try to do it backwards. We may get bad performance right before we start scripting. Why am I asked to script this if it sucks? It's a very slow process. You may have also this process that is almost corrective. Just try to script and detect afterwards. You will be having lots of losses there. Downsides also, you may have to freeze your environment. Otherwise, I cannot load test. I will not know the limits. Things keep changing. My script breaks. Those are bad. Another one is when you detect a defect on these handovers and time lost. When you try to show it maybe the second Friday of the sprint, no one is there anymore and there's no one to fix it. Time lost and lots of problems, right? You gotta beware. We are not anymore in that old monolith. We are in the modernity. We are with new trends. We are dealing with movements into new methodologies, agile, continuous, DevOps, Scrum, all these things that are making things vastly different. And as well, we're moving into the cloud. We have all these containers, SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, where we can grow vertically, we can grow horizontally. We have our pieces spread all over the place. That's very different. And last, speaking of services, we also have our service-tiered applications where everything is distributed and serviced. So it's vastly different. Last, we have this situation where to be or not to be agile. Many do not know if they are truly agile. So I'm quickly going to give you 2 elements to identify that. 2 requirements to be agile. Release into production often. Production, not QA, not staging, not pre-prod. No, production. Do it often as possible, because agile wants your code to be arriving into the end user as often as possible so that you can get some feedback on, am I doing well? Is it good, or just not wait? Or if there's a defect, to quickly be able to fix it. And that's the second component. Pay attention to production. Constantly be checking what happens in it, And if you close that loop back to development and pay attention to those feedbacks that you get from production, you get the most benefits of Agile. If you're not doing these two things, you may not be Agile. So, what is the modernity? Let's get into the beef of this talk. Modernity. First step, stop thinking that performance testing and performance assurance is only load testing, bringing the system down to its knees. Not anymore. Load testing is not performance testing, and you are not taking all the care that you should if you only do load testing. Super inefficient doing it that way. Do not only load test. There are so many other things, we will get into them, that you need to do first. Like what? Well, first, I have this recommendation. PDD, Performance-Driven Development, is a concept that I'm starting to work on, but means that you need to evolve your performance from day -1. Before you start creating an application, the first digital brick put in place, you bring someone to tell you, hey, this database may be better, the infrastructure may be better here, the distribution of the software, automation tools, principles. Let's try to have everything in place before you start. Many of us cannot do this, so let's back quickly and start building and putting everything in shape. Once you have these things, when you start a project, you continuously identify risks. What is the performance risk that I have with this new task that I have to do? How do I measure it? What do I measure? And what means that it's bad? Once I have these elements, I can couple them with the task that I have to create as a developer. When new code is developed, we will put into it these measurements. We will instrument it, we will detect, we will put tests. Code, automation. We will create those together. Make sure that this code is easy automatable and close the loop. Once we have this, well, what this means is that if we have this code, everything included and paired up, the developer has to automate. What? Yeah, it's something passing and handing over is a huge waste of time. As soon as the developer starts, then bring the testers to tell the developer, this may be good, this may be bad, to integrate this, integrate that. With all that in place, when you integrate it into the pipeline, it will be continuously tested. As soon as it checks in, it's tested. Even before it's checked in, we know the performance at all time, and we can continuously automate and test. And we can integrate that into those load tests that we like so much. I'll get back into them in a moment. So another element is observability. We need to be able to observe and know the performance of our application always and everywhere. What I mean? Everywhere means on every environment. Dev, pre-prod, staging, QA, and even prod. And even on the developers' machines. When they are creating code, we know if that is cooked well, right in the pot when they're putting the soup. We need salt right there and then. They put it and then make sure that it moves. How do we do this? Through APMs, through instrumentation, through telemetry. And once we have that in place, we need to make sure that those metrics get out into the world, that are shareable, are accessible to everyone, and that we can integrate them with our continuous pipeline, that everyone can pull them and take decisions based on that. Super important. Now, another evolution, our team, the performance people, we need to change the conception. They are not only scripters and executioners of those scripts and those tests. I recommend two roles. The performer supreme, bringing the knowledge, the best practices, the principles, what should be done around performance testing, what I said in day -1. And this performer supreme, like the CPO, Chief Performance Officer, or Senior Performance Engineer, whatever you want to call it, should be sharing or distributing the knowledge into the performance champions, who will be jumping or assigned at teams and going around teaching, enabling, giving all these principles to the rest of the team so that everyone knows a little bit of performance. It's a change of mindset, but we cannot keep up and just assign a person and, bye, you're lost, you are. They need to be jumping and just helping all the teams and sharing the knowledge, not fishing for them, but showing them how to integrate the fishes into the code. Now, another element is the, the Aztec sacrifice automation pyramid. Work in progress with that long name, but you know the automation pyramid. At the bottom, you have the unit test tier, at the middle, the service tier, and at the top, the front-end tier. Here we have to have wide, vast coverage of the automations in the unit test tier. Is like guacamole, yummy, super good. Have as much as possible. Have it everywhere, on everything. It's awesome. We love guacamole. In the service tier, we can have a lot. It's like salsa, but not that much. It can get spicy. It is not that spicy, so we can have a lot, but don't exaggerate. We need to have a decent coverage in that the service tier. Those tiers are cheap, fast. The developers can automate on them. And at the top are the sacrifices, the front end and the end-to-end tests. There, we want to avoid, who wants to do sacrifices? Most organizations like them a lot. Avoid them. Try to test everything in the lower 2 tiers, and whatever you couldn't, do the sacrifice. That's key, in performance and also in QA. Pay attention to the pyramid, don't do sacrifices. Now about tools. We need to have all the tools that we need. If we are in a horror movie, we need a shotgun. If we're in a war movie, maybe we need an AK-47. It's a medieval movie, we need a sword. Depending on what we are doing and what we are watching, the tool will be different. And we shouldn't be like in a horror movie just with a sword or a war. We need to have the right tools, the right things, depending on the pyramid level that we are. And it's important that we don't have that single tool that will do everything. No, as much as some vendors try their best to give us a tool that will do everything, that's not possible. We will have situations that are not feasible. And others, the teams may, we need tools that all the team can access, not only the tester, only the guy who has the license. That will just stop us, create bottlenecks, and be bad. Make sure that you have all the tools. Another one, stop being afraid of testing in production. We can and should test in production just if we implement the right release techniques that we do, let's say Canary, A/B, blue-green, beta testers. There are so many ways even for load tests to happen in production with real users. If we have a subsegment of beta testers to slam the system, we'll have a decent load test there. Free, with performance measured everywhere. And what is key here? We need to be observing it, paying attention, having the monitors, having all the information when we release into production, and control it. If we see an issue, roll it back, stop it, disappear it, or let it pass. It's still doing well. Let's see what happens. And if something happens, tune it, react, do something. But those are the secrets of performance testing in production and assurance. And at last, we have the almighty load tests. There are 2 types of load tests here. Mini, small load tests that we can continuously execute to be short, to be easy, using all the devices that we created earlier. All the automations that the developers put in place, we can just drag them, put a small load test, and you will repeat every night, every week to make sure that the system behaves well under some load. Because we have the system in production, we should be able to see it does well. If the load stays that way, we can do well. We are adding a small change. Okay, let's test that change, just for that change. Why do the big-ass load tests that we did in the past? Well, there are times when we will need to do that and there's no other way but with automations. Those times, very rare, Black Fridays, sales, big events, then is when we may need a new season streaming. All that is when we really need it, but on a daily basis, not so important. So make sure that you have those elements. When you need to do a big load test, you will be able to just pull things and run your test. And well, with that, that's the end. Sorry if I extended a little bit. Let's go to some good old Q&A. If I just don't get enough time to answer all your questions, you can find me on all the social networks as Señor Performo, SRPERF, or Leandro Melendez. And with that, we will give some time for some Q&A. Thank you very much. See you in a moment. Adios.